Hello, Bearcats fans. I'm Dan Horde. You recognize who's in the other box. Bearcats head football coach Luke Fickell, and we look forward to discussing Bearcat football during this strange time for college sports programs all over the country. Coach, how are Luke and Amy Fickell dealing with having 6 kids who can't leave home very often?
Well, I'm not saying they can't leave home. We kick them outside in the back quite often. They say, "Hey, there's a big woods back there. Go get lost for a couple hours. Otherwise, we're gonna have some issues here." But it's been challenging at times, but it's also been great at times too. I've never had so many family dinners, that's for sure. I've gotten to some really good workouts with my younger ones. Actually started some really good routines, but I think the routines are set, and I think it's about time that they try to these routines on their own, and I go back to work.
Are you doing any of the cooking in those dinners?
Well, I don't know if I go that far. We actually put them on teams and had them do dinners themselves before Dad had to cook. So I can do some grilling, but we've actually had the kids cook more than Dad has. So, and that's probably best for all of us.
Coach, the massive shutdown of sports began almost 1 month to the day after you turned down Michigan State and elected to stay at UC. Did that almost reinforce the notion in your own mind that you made the right decision? Because it obviously would have been difficult under these circumstances to move your entire family.
Oh, I never looked back. And so that's the great thing about it. But you do kind of, assess maybe, and not even for me, but, Doug Phillips that went to YSU. And so I guess you could kind of say it could be similar, but how difficult this time would be not knowing your players and not having time to spend with them. And I know how difficult it was in year one. And I didn't realize until the very end of the season that I didn't know them, and they didn't know each other either. So yes, I think not that I needed reassurance, but I think in just the craziness, how everything has happened, things happen for a reason. I'm here for a reason. We made the right decision for bigger reasons than this. But all in all, it's been as good as it possibly can be, knowing the core group of coaches I've got, and especially the kids that we got.
It's mid-May. What would you normally be doing this time of year, and what are you doing instead?
Oh, well, that's a great one here, because where being a head coach can be, busy at times, the month of May might be, if I ever could relax, the best time for head football coaches. All the coaches go out on the road and go recruiting in the spring. It was actually, last year was probably one of the better times. I got to spend time with the young coaches. We had meetings every morning. They taught me football, kind of just working with them. Not to mention that you have to go to Arizona to do your league meetings for 3.5 days, which I don't know why they have them in Arizona, but for some reason I think a lot of the people like to go to Arizona. So to have a 4-hour league meeting, you got to be in Arizona for 3.5 days. And then they have this little trip they call the Under Armour trip, which I had never been on until last year. I could never allow myself to leave for 2 days, but my wife talked me into it last year, and that was like, oh my goodness, this is an amazing time of year for a head football coach. But instead, I'm cramped up in a house with 6 kids scratching and clawing at each other every day and recruiting about 12 hours a day now.
At this point, you can't comment on specific recruits until they sign in the fall, even if they live under your own roof. But the recruiting experts are ranking your efforts very high. I saw something today where Cincinnati is ranked 19th in the country, at least where recruiting classes stand right now. How are you doing it? What's working as you go out and sell your message to these players?
Well, it wasn't this time. This time, if you hadn't done what our guys had done up until this time, I think we would really be struggling. But what our coaches have done in the last 6 months prior to this, even the year prior to this, of really building some really good relationships with these kids, especially the ones that have been closer, that, really took that time. And we had an event, I think the first day in May when you were allowed back onto campus, or first day in March when you were allowed back onto campus. that our recruiting department put on, and all of our coaches spent the whole Sunday there. That was really powerful. Had we not done something like that, I really don't think we would be in this situation right now. But we had really done a great job of building the relationships with those guys, being honest with them, and spending a lot of time with them, that when all of a sudden this hit, like me, like you, like anything, if you got to make a tough decision in a really trying time, I call it your 4th and 1 call. You're not just going to throw a Hail Mary. I mean, you're going to go with what you know, what you believe, and ultimately who and what you trust. And our coaches have done such a good job, and our recruiting department's done such a good job, that I really believe that a lot of these kids, it's 4th and 1, and what are you going to do? You're going to travel all this way? Or are you going to, believe the stuff that you're, seeing on this? Or are you going to go with what you know, what you believe, and who you trust?
With the recruiting that you are doing right now, where you can't have face-to-face contact, how does that work? What are you doing over a Zoom call or FaceTime or whatever?
It's amazing what you can get done walking around campus with, your phone and iPad and doing tours. And I'm telling you, my wife would tell you that you are working 2 times as much as you did when you were at the office, because at least sometimes you came home. Now, I mean, it's just never ending. And so there's a lot you can do. I don't like building a relationship like this, but I can tell you that 16, 17, 18-year-olds are much more adept to building and developing a relationship via social media and these crazy calls.
Football players and coaches live for structure. You do everything at a certain time and really organize your players' lives. What are you asking your current players to do right now?
Well, we just finished up finals. So this week was a little bit not different, because we're still doing the same similar things. I think we gave them a little bit of a break as far as checking in for their workouts every day. But for the most part, when this thing hit, I met with the leadership group and kind of said, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Here's what I want to do. You help me with the times, because I don't want to set us up for failure to something we can't not only do, but continue to do if this thing lasts a lot longer. So we came up with the structure of every morning at 9:00, kids were going to be up. They have contacted their strength coach, and from 9 to 10:30 was their workout. I'd love to tell you every single day, every guy, but for the most part, our strength coaches were getting a text message, a picture of their weight. 2 times a week, they were on FaceTime during that time for sure with every kid. And all we wanted to do was start the day. Yes, if they got up, took a picture of their weight and went back into bed, I'm not saying we would know for sure, but we wanted the structure. So from 9 to 10:30, it was working out. 10:30 to 12 was our football meetings. And we didn't meet for an hour. We didn't meet for an hour and a half. Every coach was a little bit different. Some met 3 times a week. Some met 4. Some met with young guys. Some met with other guys separate. Sometimes we met all together. But in that time frame was when you would do football. And then from 12 to 2 was all the academics. And we cleared it with the academic people. All their meetings would be in that 12 to 2 frame. Some guys obviously need more. Maybe a guy had a truly, Zoom call for a class earlier that they might have had to change. But the idea was that was the structure. And then the structure for us as coaches, we were going to take every 3 weeks and change. So I didn't want to continue to do the same things over and over. So we're into phase 3 of this COVID time, where we are actually doing basically 20-minute meetings, 4 times a week, and just presenting situational football. I did it the very first day for the offense and the defense separate. So they're hearing our voices. They're seeing some different things. They're hearing from different coaches. And the ones that are really dying to learn more football, they love it. They're getting situational football that we might not have ever had time to really talk too much about.
You got in about 1 week of spring football. Was that enough to be helpful?
It was. It was pretty good work to spend the next 3 weeks of using that film to really just coach and teach off of. So that was phase 1 of our teaching. that we took. I mean, you took everything from them. I'm talking about we filmed stretching. Our guys were critiquing their stretching forms because we had it on film. I'm like, hey guys, you're gonna have 3 weeks to use these 4 practices. You got to use everything. And so it was good. It was good. I think it was probably better for us as coaches because we just, feel better about at least the things that we got in. And it's even better because had we known that this thing's going to hit and you're only going to have 4 days, it probably would have been awful because we'd have tried to kill them. We'd have tried to put in too much. We'd have been thinking that we got to get 14 practices in 4 days, and it would have been a disaster. So I'm glad that we didn't have the foresight to say, hey, this thing's going to happen. So we were able to just do what we needed to do.
How are your players dealing with uncertainty?
A lot of them in different ways. And I like to tell you, we knew exactly this is what keeps me awake is just not knowing how every kid is dealing with it. And you can call and ask them and, like my own kids, hey, how are you doing? I'm doing good. I'm doing good. And deep down inside, are they really what's going on in their heads? And I've tried to do nothing but be honest with them and not give them, dates and things because we don't know. But I know I am at a point. I believe a lot of our kids are at a point where they need some positives and kind of excited about, the last day or so, just hearing, it's not us, but maybe, somebody says, hey, we're coming back June 1 and we're starting. And then somebody says, we're doing this and this date. And I think that you can start to sense kids are calling you more and saying, hey, coach, what are you hearing? Like, can I get back in? Can I move in? And I think that they're starting to feel a little bit of a positive vibe, which we all need.
Do you feel reasonably confident that there will be a season?
No, I do. I really do feel really good about where we are and what we're going to do. I don't know how it's exactly going to look, but I'm going to be that half full kind of guy. We all have those kind of guys, right? Like every day I call our strength coach, Brady Collins, because I know it's going to be the sky is opening up and everything is going to be perfect and great. And did you get the good news? And the good news might have been that his grass looks a little greener or something. It's always something positive. But I think that, hearing some of these trends and things like this, I always have felt good about us playing. What was it going to look like and when was it going to be? And, I still think there's a lot of questions, but I've been pulling like heck for these Japanese leagues or whoever's playing baseball on ESPN or these UFC fights that are coming on. The more people are doing, the more people are going to get comfortable and more positive vibes are going to come out of it.
The draft has come and gone. Josiah DeGuara was selected in the 3rd round by the Green Bay Packers, maybe a little bit higher than most people thought. What was your reaction?
It's the exact example of what it is we want to be. And I don't mean, well, you mean everybody's going to get drafted? No. I like to say that Josiah had a 5th round grade from a lot of people, and he was drafted in the 3rd. It's what we want to pride ourselves on. We talk about it of how do you get guys to play and perform above their God-given abilities. Well, if his God-given abilities were his size, his speed, his strength, that was a 5th round grade. He gets drafted in the 3rd round because he played and performed. Coach Denbrock, our offense, the program, Coach Brady, everything around him got him to help him play and perform above his God-given abilities, and he gets drafted in the 3rd. And that's what we want to do with our guys. Could he have gone higher? Darn right he could have. And I believe he'll do great. And, so I think that he's a great example for what it is that we pride ourselves on in the program.
Michael Warren signed as a undrafted free agent with the Eagles. Brian Wright went to the Chiefs, Rashad Medeiros to the Cardinals, and Perry Young to the CFL. So you've got 4 additional players that are at least going to get a shot to play pro football.
Yeah, and those are the guys I don't feel bad for them because obviously they're going to get their shot. I really believe maybe with the pro day, some things could have been a little bit different. You don't know. The guys I feel a little bit more for, some of those guys that didn't get signed. And so I've been doing a little bit of research to try to say, why? Perry Young, how can he not get an opportunity in the NFL? It's great that he's going to the CFL, And, Morgan James, I don't understand it. And, through all my talking to 4 or 5 different, programs, getting their profiles and things like that, I found out, with what's going on and what they believe the NFL is going to have maybe a shorter time for their, mini camps and things like that, or no mini camps and things like that. They're signing a lot more veteran free agents as opposed to undrafted rookie free agents. One team told me where they would normally sign 15, free agents after the draft, undrafted. They said, no, we're only going to sign 7 because we need to bring in some older guys. So I feel bad for those guys that aren't going to get this opportunity just yet. But I think that, they'll hopefully at some point in time get their chance.
Let me put on my Bengals hat for a second, because you were around Joe Burrow for a couple of years at Ohio State and almost convinced him to transfer to Cincinnati before he went to LSU. What are the Bengals getting in Joe Burrow?
I think everybody has a good idea, and that's the beauty of it. What you see is what you get. What you hear from him and what he says, that's who he is. I mean, there's nothing greater than looking at him in the draft, and he's sitting there with his mom and his dad, as humble as it can be, and it's who he is. He grew up a competitor. He grew up a tough guy. I saw it firsthand in a lot of tough situations. It took a lot of shots that I actually even felt bad for, being a defensive guy. But I always kind of say, hey, this is going to make you a lot better in the long run. I didn't know how much better, but he's going to do everything he possibly can. I think the great thing is when he comes in there, he's smart enough to realize, look, I don't know what it's like being a number 1 player taken or a first-round draft pick, but he's going to come in and not. That doesn't mean anything to him. He'll go to work, and I can't imagine that he won't earn the respect of everybody in that locker room, no matter how the play even starts off from the get-go.
You will enter this upcoming season with the 7th longest home winning streak in the country, 13 straight wins. You haven't lost a home game each of the last 2 years. How do you feel about the environment that you're creating at Nippert?
Oh, man, I miss it. Those replays of the games, I can't get enough of them. And I think that, that was the thing that when I told you that when I came here, I had never seen a game in Nippert. And even after the first year, everybody's like, hey, the environment in Nippert. And I'm like, we didn't have a whole lot to cheer about. But, I didn't get the opportunity to even feel it or see it. And, as year 2 kind of went through, we started to feel some of that and started to say, okay, I think I see what people were talking about. And then this past year, and it wasn't just the UCF game. I'm talking UCLA. It was really, really good. And I know that's what I'm missing right now, but I don't even want to think about it too much, because even if it happens to be a little bit different this year because of whatever the situation is going to be, but I now truly know what you guys told me about, and that's a big part of it. There's nothing greater than that, and that's where I think that a lot of this recruiting, those kids were a part of that. Those kids see that, and that means a lot to them.
You are a no excuses kind of guy. In all my interactions with you over the last 3 years, on the air, off the air, I don't ever remember you really making an excuse about anything. Is that a big message that you're trying to send your players right now, that these circumstances are happening to everybody and we've got to find a way to make the best of it?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's going to be. Unfortunately, I've tried not to do a whole bunch of whole team meetings. We've kind of done that with the coaches and really hoping and pushing for them to get those messages across. And with the leadership group and things like that, that's what we want to permeate through. And, I hate to say it, but since this thing started, and we had no idea how long, we still don't really know how long. But I said, this is going to be the greatest test of the environment and the culture and the things that we've done. And not just to see how guys come back, but every single one of them to a T that I've said is, guys, I'm not worried about your strength. I'm not worried about your conditioning. I'm more worried about you mentally being in a really good place so you don't have that crutch. And that's all I'm talking about is excuses, because you can imagine as you come back and that first time things don't go right, I dropped the ball and it's like, God, I haven't had, if I would have had spring football, whoa, or I'm not just quite as strong as I was before. My pass rush isn't as, no. And so I think the mind is going to be really important as we take this next step at some point in time where we get back to football to really, really get that mind right and say, look, it doesn't matter. You might not be quite as strong. You might not be in quite as good a shape. There's some things maybe we got to do a little bit different, but don't allow that to put you in a negative place where you start making excuses and now they compound on top of each other. So that'll be maybe one of the first team meetings when we actually get back together. But we've started talking about that a lot to the leadership group of the guys and want that to still continue to permeate, when they talk to those guys.
Well, I have learned that if I need to have a good day, I need to begin it by calling Brady Collins.
That's for sure.
Getting a dose of sunshine.
It is 80 degrees and it is sunny out. I'm like, no, it's raining at my house. Well, I'm coming to your house.
Well, since you did a 2-hour Zoom call immediately before this in recruiting, and I've held you for this long, we'll let you go. But I appreciate the information. It's great to catch up, and we look forward to seeing each other face-to-face when that's allowed.
Well, I appreciate it. You can't tell, but we're just 6 feet away from each other, right? I was watching that UFC fight the other night, and I couldn't tell. Like, they got to be there, but they're doing a split screen. Is that just to make sure they look like they're 6 feet apart? Don't tell anybody. Your background's different than mine. You're really just on the other side of the room.
It's our secret, our little secret.
All right.
Thanks,
I appreciate it, guys. Anytime, Dan. Good to see you.
All right. Hope you enjoyed it, Bearcat fans. Great to catch up with UC head coach Luke Fickell.